Welcome back. Minister in the Presidency Khumbudzo Ntshavheni has given an update on the outcomes of a cabinet meeting held this week. She spoke on a number of issues on government's agenda, but let's get you some analysis now. We're joined by Dr. Harla Cloete. He's a Public and Local Governance Research Fellow at the Centre for Gender and African Studies at the University of the Free State. Dr. Cloete, as always, a pleasure talking to you. Thanks very much for coming on. Perhaps the most glaring, we'll get to the content of what the Minister in the Presidency had to say, but perhaps the most glaring issue is that she was even giving this briefing in the midst of a cloud of corruption allegations against her.
You know, that is some of the, good afternoon to you and good afternoon to the viewers. You know, I think that is some of the contradictions within our system, leadership. We say over and over again in the research that we conduct as well, is that you can't fault government for saying the right thing. Often we have a problem in execution. And so the cloud of corruption that is around us, South Africans demand, from whatever persuasion, we demand ethical and accountable leadership from our leaders within government.
Yeah, absolutely, especially because it appears, according to investigations, well, the NPA's expanded corruption probe into the minister, according to what News24 reported this week, there's an investigation into 80 million rands worth of mismanaged funds during her tenure as municipal manager in Phalaborwa, in that municipality. This is not a small issue that we're talking about in a context where corruption is so rife in our country.
Look, I'm not sure whether the minister has been charged because, you know, there's one thing to speculate, and I don't want to speculate outside of the formal processes. So if it is being investigated, I think we must wait until the minister is charged and then we can confront, but we can't try the minister in the media, for example. So sure. I'm a bit uncomfortable to voice an opinion on that because I have too little information to go on.
Is that just in terms of governance, which is part of your title, Dr. Cloete, is that the right way for us or any country to go about things? If I am being investigated for corruption in a corruption-plagued country, whether I should go ahead with my job per usual? And I'm asking you this purely as an academic exercise.
I think, you know, where they say where there's smoke, there's a fire. So I'm saying and it is so easy, it has become too easy, you know, to put labels on people. So if a person is charged or if there's speculation, I'm saying that the law must go its course. We live in this country by the rule of law. And the ANC, for example, have a policy that says once you are charged, you know, it happened in the city of Cape Town the other day where JP Smith was investigated, his offices were raided, and I'm not quite sure where the case is now. Then there was a big hoo-ha saying that the man is guilty. And I'm saying if you investigate and if you're going to go to those lengths to raid a person's office, then the next logical step would be that you've gathered evidence. And now I've got prima facie evidence to confront a person to say, I'm charging you with that. But all too often, I think, and that's the danger of it all, is that we are quick to label one another without laying the charge. Once the charge is laid, then, you know, that person will have his or her day in court to answer. But until such time, I think it's a bit dangerous, you know, to jump to conclusions.
Sure. All right, let's go to the content of her cabinet briefing just earlier this afternoon. And perhaps quite a glaring omission, although the minister did address it now in a one-on-one with our reporter, Latasha Naidu, was the issue of the flooding in KwaZulu-Natal. And what the minister had to say in that one-on-one with our reporter is that it's not new, it's an annual thing. Disaster management teams nationally are working with provincial teams as well. In terms of, you know, cabinet briefings being an opportunity for government to take the public into its confidence about the priorities that we're dealing with on any given day of the briefing, is that enough of a response, just given the absolute devastation in that province?
I think disaster management, if you look at, I was listening to her and I was thinking, you know, how I wish and how I would want to see these type of briefings happening at the municipal level as well. Imagine a municipality after a council meeting, they take the residents into the conference and give a briefing about what was decided. But coming back to, I think what is important for me, she's right that we are not surprised by flooding. I think we would, in order to measure in terms of governance, are we better prepared this time for the flooding? And so one would hope that we are learning as a learning organization that municipalities are learning how to better respond to it, how to better coordinate, how to better prepare communities, And so the response time is what we need to look at. Disaster management sits at the local sphere, and we know at the local government level, there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of governance challenges in terms of coordination and collaboration, and also the different spheres of government. So one hopes that, with that we're learning and that we are better prepared.
Did anything else stand out for you, Dr. Cloete? I imagine that the postponed budget stood out. It is still within the framework. The budget speech itself, scheduled now for the 12th of March, is still within the framework of when the budget needs to be delivered, the Public Finance Management Act framework. But what else stood out for you?
I had a quick look at it. It looks like unemployed figures are coming down. It looks like there's a low in the crime statistics. And I think the purpose of the briefing is, like you say, to take South Africans into the confidence. People want to know. People don't want to be left in the dark. The load shedding, it took us by surprise. And I think that is positive, that load shedding now takes us by surprise. I think government have been fairly good in terms of making sure that it in terms of its recovery plan. So that has reassured South Africans, because all of us, we don't like load shedding. We don't like it. It's just bad for the economy and all of that. I think the medium-term development plan that she has introduced sets out the priority for government over the next 5 years. The briefing also talked about the communication plan, and I'm keen to go and read that, because specifically at local level, we are not communicating. And for me, local government is the heart of it all. If we get it wrong at local government, if we don't have assurance at locally in terms of addressing these issues, national issues, then it all fails. And so the medium-term development plan that she has introduced, I'm keen to have a look at that now. And also assuring South Africans that although the budget was postponed, it's not a crisis yet. I think it's the partners finding one another. And in any negotiations, in any coalitions, it's give or take. And so these are the teething problems of coalition governance that is very normal. In other countries in Europe, it takes 7 months to put together some governments. The Germans just had an election, no majority, and it takes a while. Here we put it together in two weeks, it says. And so these are early days, and I'm very positive that we will find a way. A concern also is the different messages, it seems, from the commissioner at SARS and the minister. And we know that for the Treasury to work, there has to be a very good relationship between the commissioner at SARS and the minister.
Yeah, I mean, teething problems, would you say? Would you call it teething problems, Dr. Cloete? Or perhaps quite a good opportunity, perhaps opportunity is the wrong word, but a positive development insofar as the government of national unity is concerned, or else we would have had a 2% VAT increase, perhaps?
I think South Africa welcomes this. We don't want an increase in VAT. And so I have seen proposals from other parties to look at where we can save in other aspects. And I think what is positive for me, it's the collective mindset, that I think that there are good politicians across political parties, and there's bad ones as well. And I think we've got the opportunity to tap into that creativity, to tap into that collective will of people, and to tap into that collective creativity to find collective ways about how we move forward. So I'm still optimistic that we are steering it in the right direction. However, the persistent problems in terms of a pro-poor budget, making sure that the poor, that we address the issues in education and in healthcare, I think those should be priorities, because we are not doing enough for the poorer South Africans who bear the brunt of climate change, of flooding. It's the poor that are the most vulnerable when it comes to matters of these, where government can't get their act together. And so youth unemployment remains persistent. We've got unacceptable levels of violence against women and children. And those are the things that we need. Collective effort. It is not just in government, it's collective effort. And that is what the National Development Plan speaks to, how we collectively get out. And so civil society must keep putting pressure on government to do the right thing.
Less talk, more action, perhaps. Dr. Harla Cloete. Let me thank you for your time this afternoon. He's a Public and Local Governance Research Fellow at the Centre for Gender and Africa Studies at the University of the Free State.